From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. I am freshly boosterized. Got my booster shot a couple days ago, so I'm feeling pretty good. I got a little bit ill from the vaccine. My first dose and my second dose, I felt fine. Not one little bit of a side effect. This time, some body aches, chills, kind of put me out for a day. But then I was fine. So I encourage you to get vaccinated if you're not, to get boosted if you're eligible for that. And you are eligible as long as your last dose was about 6 months ago or longer. So take care of that. It's the right thing to do. It not only protects you, but most importantly, it protects your neighbors and your family and strangers who might be within 1 or 2 degrees of separation from you. Get your vaccine to protect Kevin Bacon, because we're all just 7 degrees removed from Kevin Bacon. So if for any other reason, get your vaccine, get your booster. Of course, we know I'm not going to, you know me, I'm very careful the way I talk about COVID, because I don't want anything I say to be misconstrued or misunderstood. I don't trust myself to be clear, to be succinct. I might make a linguistic error and send somebody down the wrong path, and that's the very last thing I want to do. Here's the only thing I know for sure. Currently, as I speak, in the Midwest and Northeast, cases are on the rise. Of course, deaths trail cases by about a couple of weeks, I guess. So we're just not out of it. And of course, the big story globally is the Omicron variant, which the World Health Organization has deemed a very high risk. And here again, I'm going to be careful with my words. From what I've been able to read, and I'm hoping you're keeping up on these things, they don't know. They still have lots of questions about Omicron, including how to pronounce it. Omicron is what I'm hearing. I've also heard Omicron and Omicron. And Omicron, you could make a parody song using Paul Simon's Kodachrome. Omicron, give me the nice bright color. So I expect somebody's already done that, I bet. But not to make light of it, it could be. It was serious enough for the World Health Organization to call an emergency meeting. And scientists are very concerned, because they just don't really understand what they need to understand about this. So they're being very cautious. I'm not going to comment. I'm not going to give you an up or a down on the travel bans. That is not my pay grade. I don't know. The best case I've heard for it is it buys you a little bit of time. It gives you a couple of weeks to at least slow down the spread. Travel bans don't stop the spread of viruses. It can buy you a little time, especially in these early stages where they're trying to understand the new variant. So there's that. The fact that it's 6 or 7 countries from Southern Africa doesn't seem to make sense, because that's where the first discoveries were made. Public health scientists and doctors in South Africa were the first ones to identify and pinpoint this thing. But the fact is, it's already pretty much everywhere. There are spots all around the globe, in Canada and Portugal, and there are various spots where there have been isolated cases. So, again, I'm not going to even offer an opinion. I mean, I can tell you that office holders, presidents and whatnot of these 7 countries are not happy, because it does seem to single them out unfairly, and it has an economic impact. And really, don't get me going down that road. Let's go down that road. As we look at COVID right now, where we come from and where we stand, you can't divorce the, stay with that metaphor. You can't divorce this marriage we have. between ourselves and the so-called economy. We are just blood bound to this thing we call the economy. And as an abolitionist myself, as someone who advocates for the abolition of money, the abolition of profit, the abolition of borders, these are all the big overriding concerns that, well, what are they overriding? They're overriding public health. Because if we really cared about public health, then we would have been able to get everybody vaccinated. We would have, which we haven't been able to do, because the powers that be refuse to force Big Pharma to give up their proprietary rights to the vaccines. So there's one thing right there where the so-called economy, the forces of money, have superseded public health. And then along with that, the resistance to any kind of mask mandates or certainly business closures, lockdowns, that ship has just sailed. I don't think we're ever going to see that again, because Americans have just come down in too many numbers. It's not unanimous. Nothing's unanimous. But the pushback from any kind of mandates like that have been so strong that I can't even imagine the Biden administration or anyone else really at this point. I mean, you hear it every once in a while. What was the last one? Was it Portugal? I forget now. Somebody declared a 2-week lockdown just very recently. I don't see that happening here. I think we're beyond that. So we've just sort of made a decision as a country. At this point, it doesn't matter what the numbers are. You know, you look at the polls and 75% of Americans have been vaccinated, at least one dose. So you think that'd be pretty good. But at this point, the progress has been so slow, and the many, many millions of people who've refused to get vaccinated for one reason or another are creating or are elongating this pandemic. Commentators have said, and I have to agree, that at this point, it's a pandemic of choice. We've chosen this. Using the colloquial we. Generally speaking, there's enough of us who have just made the decision. Yeah. Not going to wear masks, not going to social distance, not going to get vaccinated, whatever combination of those three. It's enough to keep this damn thing going and to allow for variance. And to go beyond our borders, also by choice, because we've chosen one priority over another, namely the so-called economy over everything else. Almost 2 years into this thing, we don't have vaccines just flooding the globe. Poor nations are still under-vaccinated by a mile. Some down in the single digits for their populations having access to the vaccine. So, this is a pandemic of choice. We've made our choices. I don't know what can happen next to make us change our minds. I hope to God it's not this new Omicron variant that's just going to rage across the globe, which some doctors are telling us, again, without getting out in front of it. They're being very blunt. Like, this could be very, very severe. We are doing our very best very quickly to learn exactly what this thing is. So while they ask us not to panic, they are also being pretty honest about it. It's like, you know what? This could be bad. So if it is really as bad as they fear it could be, or even worse, could that possibly change some minds and break down this damn barrier that pharma has set up, where the vaccine isn't free and available to everyone on the globe? Because that's the only way we get out of this. I've been saying this for a year and a half, and it's so unoriginal, it's embarrassing, and it's so obvious, and you hear it from voices much greater than mine. Until everybody is safe, nobody is safe. They've also been telling us, and I've been trying to repeat this, shouting it from the rooftops, I'm scared of the next variant. I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm not Chicken Little saying that the sky is falling. I'm not an alarmist. I've been saying for a year and a half. We got to get everybody vaccinated, or else it just allows for variants. So we've had how many now? I heard a report the other day. It's over 20. It's like 25 or 6 different variants we've had. and the various health organizations around the world, including World Health Organization, they sort of check each one as it comes out. And now the Omicron is number 25 or 6 or 7 or whatever it is. And now this one makes some damn headlines. It's like, yeah, this could be bad. And we've all been warned. None of this is new. We've all been warned about this. I haven't said anything original for a year and a half. I've just been repeating the warnings of those who really know. We got to take this thing seriously. But at this point, it's a choice. It's a choice of individuals who just refuse to do the right thing. It's the choice of rich countries not doing what they need to do to protect the globe. And I don't know how they don't see this as in their own interest. It's just so painfully obvious. Are they really that small-minded enough, that stupid enough to believe that we can keep a pandemic outside our borders? That's not how viruses work. And this resistance to the vaccine, of course, it's not just individual, it's political. We got governors and mayors leading the fight against vaccines. And just yesterday, a federal court temporarily halted the Biden administration's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for health workers at hospitals that receive federal funding. This is the lowest bar to cross. I'm reading from The Hill right now. The ruling by a Missouri-based federal judge applies to healthcare employees in the 10 states that sued to block the administration's November 5th rule. U.S. District Judge Matthew Schlepp, a Trump appointee, appeared persuaded by the state's argument that the mandate would lead to staffing shortages. Joe Biden never wanted to mandate anything. From the very beginning, he expressed his concern about mandates. No, we don't want to have to do this. He only did it when he was basically forced to by circumstances. If people had just stepped up, if individuals had stepped up and gotten vaccinated, if companies and health organizations had stepped up and required mandates within their private companies, but then it quickly got to the point where that just wasn't happening. And there was so much resistance that Joe Biden felt like his hand was forced. Well, all right, you're not going to do it. You're not going to get vaccinated. We'll have to mandate this. Because, damn, we got to fight this pandemic. You know I'm not the biggest Joe Biden fan in the world, but what else can he do? He's the one thing I would ask him to do, I mentioned earlier, use all the powers you have as president of the United States. You're still the so-called leader of the free world. Can you get Pfizer and Moderna and the rest of them to hand over the so-called recipe? And can you, as leader of the free world, make sure that every country on this planet shares the formula, they get the resources, everything they need? We can't buy our way out of this. We can't wish our way out of it. We can't even legislate our way out of it. We can't mandate our way out of it. Just good old-fashioned basic science is the only way we get out of this. And right at the top of the list is vaccines. So, yeah, I don't lay a lot of this at the feet of Joe Biden. I think he's doing what he can. That's the one big thing he needs to do. You got to make the vaccine available to everyone. I said a couple of episodes ago, I'll repeat, if there are any really good hackers out there listening, hack Pfizer, hack Moderna, hack whoever has created a good vaccine and make sure it's open resourced for everybody. And then anybody and everybody with money, every government, every billionaire, hey, Bezos, instead of riding your penis rocket into space, why don't you toss a couple of $1 billion into buying vaccines and syringes for people? Come on, let's get on this. Speaking of vaccine, Merriam-Webster has chosen their word of the year. Oh, I love this time of year. We get all the end-of-year lists coming up now, between now and Christmas and New Year's. And so the word of the year, according to Merriam-Webster, I bet you can guess it. Yep, vaccine. Vaccine is the word of the year. But at this point, I don't know what we do. we're just sort of at the mercy of people who refuse to do the right thing. I don't know how we convince them. If I knew, I'd tell you. Try to educate, try to flatter, cajole, bribe. I don't know. Give everybody $1 million for getting vaccine. How much money have we got in the coffers, and how much would it take? Let's just sit down. Sit down with every anti-vaxxer. All right, everybody has their price. What's it going to take? I mean, there were lots of programs like this. I think right here in Wisconsin, I forget, maybe it was the UW system. I forget, somebody was paying $100 per shot. Yeah, let's just sit down with the anti-vaxxers. What's it going to take? $100? 200? 1,000? 500,000? At this point, I'm not sure what the top line price would be. How much have we got? Have the Fed print up some money. I know, the Fed doesn't print money. Don't write me letters. But they're so sure of themselves. These people are so sure of themselves. And when you take a step back and look at the big picture, this is the same problem we have. There's an underlying thread here, a current running through all of our big problems, through COVID and through economic inequality, healthcare generally, not just COVID, and certainly the biggest one of them all, climate crisis. We got big problems. And then along with that, the outright attack on democracy and the rise of fascism around the world. Okay, so these are pretty big problems. What's the common thread? The resistors, the people who are just wrong. I don't want to call them stupid. I don't know. What do we call these people? Ignorant? Wrong-headed? I know. I'm supposed to get along with everybody. I'm supposed to compromise. No. If you were around in the 20s and early 30s, were you one of those people who would be saying, just compromise with the Nazis? Just find common ground. They're good people. No, there's some people you don't compromise with. And if we're going to use that analogy, which I know we're not supposed to do, but damn it, I'm gonna, because why not? I mean, hell, when they're marching by the hundreds and hundreds and carrying torches and yelling Nazi slogans and Heil Hitlering and carrying swastika flags, I don't think I'm taking too big of a jump here to say, those guys look like Nazis. So, yeah, I'm allowed the Nazi comparison, excuse me. So, no, I'm not going to get along with them. At the time, if we're making comparisons to pre-Nazi and early Nazi Germany, there were the hardcore, there were the guys who wore the uniforms and Heil Hitler and all of that crap. And then there were the sympathizers. And, I mean, there's kind of a hierarchy. And then just the people in the streets. Just the people trying to get on with life. And a lot of them were, whatever. They're all just politicians. All sides are equally dishonest and corrupt, and it makes no difference to me. I mean, where are you in this hierarchy? Well, I'm not a uniform-wearing, swastika-carrying Nazi. I'm not a sympathizer. And I'm also not going to just go along to get along. Well, I got bigger things to worry about, and they're all corrupt, and I've got to get up every day and go to work and feed my kids, so whatever. So no, I'm not going to compromise with these people. I'm going to find a way, depending on where they are in the hierarchy, to either beat them or defeat them or somehow try to convert them. I mean, there's still hope for the apathetic ones of the world, for the people who say, well, all politics is corrupt and makes no difference. And, reach them. I've been thinking lately, and I think you and I may have touched on this once upon a time. It rings a bell in my memory. If we just figure out a way to somehow kind of dummy proof. You know how you put rails, if you're a beginning bowler or you're bowling with kids, you can put up the rails. So no gutter balls. It just helps a kid have a little more fun. We need rails in society to help people not be always tossing gutter balls. Just make these really horrible mistakes impossible. Or you baby-proof your home. You got a toddler. Oh, all of a sudden the toddler's up and running around. Well, now you got sharp corners you got to cover up. You got to put locks on cabinets. You got to put up bumpers and rails. You got to baby-proof a house. I think maybe we have to start thinking about this. Yeah, maybe we need this generally in society. We got a dummy-proof society. We got to help people help themselves. I don't know exactly what this looks like. I was talking to my son the other day. We had a nice conversation, and ranked choice voting came up. There are lots of good ideas out there about upholding democracy, about saving democracy. Yeah, we got to try to dummy-proof. And then a couple things that are certainly in the offing right now. The two big things, voting rights, the two bills in Congress, which are going nowhere and will go nowhere unless Manchin and Sinema can be convinced in the next several months to drop their devotion to the filibuster. I see no reason to expect that. So that, the voting rights, and then police accountability. The two big negotiators there for the Democrats, it was Cory Booker. For the Republicans, it was, what's his name? Tim Scott. Tim Scott on the Republican side. They negotiated for months and finally just couldn't get it done. Just absolutely couldn't get it done. So that sits there on the desk of the Senate, just going nowhere. Just file this one. Several states, including my own Wisconsin, are in a pitched battle right now with the clock ticking very quickly over redistricting and gerrymandering, with a real imminent danger here that it's not going to be settled by the time we go to the 22 midterms. If the Republicans have their way, another 10 years of entrenched minority rule. The numbers in Wisconsin are as bad as anywhere in the country, but indicative. I think it's 40-something% of the vote that Republicans routinely get, and yet they hold 65, something like that, 65% of the seats in the Assembly and the Senate. So the basics of democracy, the basics of justice. And then if we can somehow, thinking short-term and long-term here, long-term we just have to help people to understand what's real and what's not real. That gets down to real fundamental stuff. Teaching civics, education, trying to reform the media so it's not so filled with lies and misinformation. None of this is easy. So maybe while we're working on the really fundamental long-term stuff, maybe we can come up with some short-term solutions. Maybe we can put up some rails, put up some bumpers, lock some cabinets, make this country just a little bit more dummy-proof. I don't know exactly what that looks like. If you have any ideas, let me know. Because we got way too many people gumming up the works. And they're so confident, so absolutely sure of themselves. I hate confidence. I know that's supposed to be a good quality. I think it's one of the worst qualities that a person can have is confidence. I think we should all be riddled with self-doubt. We should operate that way. You can still be happy. I'm a happy guy. I'm riddled with self-doubt constantly. I'm not sure what I'm doing. I'm not sure if I'm right or I'm wrong. I offer analysis every day here on the podcast for you guys. I offer analysis. I offer possible solutions. But you know that I'm filled with doubt. I think the world would be a lot better place, an infinitely better place, if we were all skeptical of our own abilities, a little less confident, a lot less confident in our own opinions. Because the people who are most confident in their own conclusions are, by definition, the ones who are most difficult to persuade, to change. And generally speaking, the anti-vaxxers, the anti-maskers, the anti-democracy folks, those flirting with fascism, the neo-Nazis, the insurrectionists, the deplorables, all of they are just brimming with confidence. Yeah, confidence is way overrated. It's way overrated. All right. Well, it looks like we have just a couple minutes left in the half hour. By the way, I think I'm going to maybe change the format of the show. I found that 20 minutes is better than 29 minutes. I think that's about the 20-minute mark is where things ought to wrap up. So I'm toying with the idea of doing a 20-minute podcast, and then any radio station that wants to play the show, and I'm thinking specifically of our flagship station, River West Radio, here where I live, they need a 29-minute block. So I'm thinking out loud here. What would you think if I did the regular show, but I changed it from 29 to 20 minutes? Because I think that's better. When I listen back, when I do an air check, I always think at about the 20-minute mark, that's where it should be over. The next 9 seems like it's superfluous. I don't know quite how I do it, though, because then I gotta have another 9 minutes for anybody playing the show on a radio station. So I thought, well, okay, maybe I could do a 20-minute version of the show and then do 9 minutes of something a little different. It might be kind of nice to have 20 minutes of this and then 9 minutes of, I don't know, something a little different, and break it up. Break it up with a little music bed or something. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm having a production meeting in my head for all to hear. I don't know. You think that's a good idea? I don't know exactly what that 9 minutes would be. Maybe just smaller random stories. That's a good idea. So I could do one 20-minute kind of extended piece on a particular issue. And then I could do something random or several random stories. For example, Amy Schneider. I'm not sure how she did last night, but the last I heard, she was still winning on Jeopardy and she qualified for the Tournament of Champions. If you're a Jeopardy fan, you know how this works. I think you have to win 5 times. I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, she's qualified now to be in the Tournament of Champions for this season. And she's the first openly trans woman to achieve this feat. So good for her. I'm always really happy when barriers are broken and there's a first somewhere, because that means there'll be a second and a third, and then at some point it's just routine. So I'm just kind of this happy little news here. I'm thrilled about it. Amy Schneider, the first openly trans woman to qualify for Jeopardy's Tournament of Champions. So good for them. They still don't have a host. This saga is just going on forever and ever. Ken Jennings, the all-time grand champion of Jeopardy, is hosting currently. At least he was last week. But no one's been named permanent host. They're still punting that football around. I don't know why. All right. There it is. I love you. I'm Charles Purcell.